Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to deal with how communication fails between generations and what makes the gap wide. Morocco today is a country where more than half the population is under 35 and where that young majority is navigating a world that their parents and grandparents simply did not grow up in. As of 2025, 81% of Moroccans use social media, a figure that has risen by 8 points since 2020. TikTok alone now reaches a quarter of the population, with users under 25 making up more than a third of its base, and there is 4 of them opening the app every single day. Meanwhile, older adults aged 55 and above make up the largest share of the offline population. Alongside rural communities and lower income groups, there isn't simply a question of who has a phone and who doesn't. It is a structural split in how two generations receive information, form opinions, speak to each other, and crucially, what they consider to be a real conversation at all. As both are a communicator and someone who has sat across this gap daily in classrooms and in family settings, I can say directly, the failure of communication between generations in Morocco is not a matter of bad intentions or on either side. It is a matter of mismatched tools, mismatched speeds, and above all, mismatched assumptions about what communication is for. The medium mismatch. The first and most visible constraint is what communication theorist Marshall McLuhan identified as the medium is the message. The channel through which a message travels changes how it is received, independently of what is actually said. In Morocco today, a young person and a parent or teacher often inhabit entirely different media environments. The young person communicates through voice notes, TikTok clips, and mixed language text messages. The parent or elder expects a face-to-face exchange, seated with eye contact and time given. These are not equivalent formats. A voice note sent from the next room carries for the sender the full weight of the communication. For the receiver, it may register as evasion, as a failure to show up. Neither reading is wrong. Both are shaped by the medium each side has come to trust. The result is that the same message carrying the same intention lands differently depending on which side of this media divide you stand on. In a classroom, I have watched students give precise, well-argued responses in a WhatsApp group after class that they were unable or unwilling to produce in the room itself, because the medium of the classroom no longer matches their natural communication register. That gap between what a young Moroccan can say and what the format setting allows them to say is one of the clearest signs that the medium has become a wall, not a bridge. The second constraint is structural, and sociologist Pierre Bourdieu's concept of cultural capital explains it precisely. Cultural capital refers to the skills, knowledge, and competencies that grant social standing and influence within a group. For most of Moroccan's history, this capital flowed in one direction, from elder to younger, from teacher to student, from parent to child. Elders held knowledge of tradition, of social codes, of how things work. That knowledge was the source of their authority in communication. Digital fluency has disrupted this flow. Today, 56% of young Moroccans aged between 18 to 35 hold post-secondary qualifications, compared to just 9 to 27% among older cohorts. More practically, a 70-year-old may be the only person in the household who knows how to navigate a government digital platform, file an online request, or decode a mixed script. WhatsApp message. The youngest member of the family has become, in certain domains, the most capable communicator. And this quiet inversion of the traditional hierarchy creates friction that neither side has the vocabulary to name. The parent who once commanded the conversation now depends on the child to interpret the digital world. That dependency, left acknowledged, breeds resentment on one side and impatience on the other. As an educator, I see this every term. Students who hold more technological literacy than their teachers but are still expected to communicate in formats that the institution controls, and that they find increasingly foreign. The third constraint is the most human one. Psychologist Eric Erikson described the need of older adults to guide and transmit values to the next generation as generativity. Generativity, the sense of purpose that comes from feeling that one's experience and knowledge are being passed on and received in Morocco, where elders have traditionally held the role of moral and social guides within the family. This function is now regularly short-circuited by the speed and format of digital communication. A grandparent who gives considered advice of the dinner table doesn't experience the same acknowledgement when the teenager across from them is half reading a reply between notifications. The advice may be heard, but the generativity is blocked. The elder doesn't feel received, and the younger person doesn't feel trusted enough to be spoken to as an adult or an adult. This breakdown is compounded by a real values tension that data confirms. Moroccan youth aged between 18 to 35 are significantly more optimistic about the country's future than their elders. 54% expect the economy to improve in the coming year, compared to 39 to 44% of older cohorts, yet simultaneously 28% have seriously considered immigrating, a figure that has risen by 8 points since 2017. These young people are not disconnected from Moroccan identity. They are caught between a tradition they respect and the future tradition alone cannot equip them for. When parents and educators respond to this tension with silence, dismissal, or the instruction to simplify, follow the established path, communication doesn't merely fail, it closes. And the closed communication channel between a generation and its elders doesn't just damage families, it damages the society those families constitute. The generational communication gap in Morocco will not close by itself, and it will not close by either side simply speaking louder. It closes when both sides agree, explicitly or implicitly, on what communication is for. That requires three concrete shifts. First, educational institutions must stop treating the classroom as a fixed format communication environment and begin teaching communication across media, not to replace the face-to-face conversation, but to build the bridge between it and the digital format students actually inhabit. Second, parents and elders must find ways to acknowledge the cultural capital reversal without reading it as disrespect. Because a young person's digital competence is not a challenge to authority, it is a resource the family needs. And third, both sides must recover the patience that generativity requires, the willingness to sit with a question rather than reply to it, to listen across a format that feels foreign, and to trust that the other person's way of speaking is not a refusal to connect but a different route toward the same destination. In Morocco, where more than 73% of youth say the country is heading in the right direction, The will to build something together is clearly present on both sides of this gap. What is missing is not motivation. It is a shared communicational framework in which that motivation can be expressed, heard, and acted upon.